Hi,
Luke.
Frank. Hey, happy Friday. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. So, since you said good afternoon, I can tell that you're based in Europe as well. That's correct?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm actually based in Berlin. I mean,
Okay.
my German is not that well, so I prefer that we do this in English. I mean, I took some German classes moving to Berlin, but since I'm originally from the Netherlands, it's not that far from my, let's say, home language.
Yeah.
But still.
Hey, I can tell you, I got friends from Canada, and they they stayed in Berlin for 8 years, and I think they survived the 8 years in Berlin without speaking much German. And they even brought up two kids there. The kids can speak German perfectly, but not so the parents. So don't be too hard on you if you don't get around to learn much German. I think Berlin is the perfect place to get around without.
Exactly. I actually think it's sort of the least German city in the entire Germany, right? I guess if I would have moved to Leverkusen or even a city like Wuppertal, I think I would have really struggled with flawed German.
Exactly. So,
where are you based? I was going to ask.
I'm based close to Monheim. So I work for the crop science division here, and my office is in Monheim, and I live in Langenfeld, which is basically in between Cologne and Düsseldorf in the midst of the Rhineland. But office time, to be fair, hasn't been much lately. So we are post? I just say we're post-pandemic, and luckily our site management had the fancy idea to invest into new hybrid models. So we are part of a pilot that explores new office concepts, which is super exciting. But the reality is that it started almost a year after it was initially planned. But now we're all excited to go back to the office and explore how we can make use of shared spaces and different concepts. And I don't know, how's it on your end? Do you go to the office?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to the office maybe 3 times a week normally. Well, I mean, normally 5 times a week, obviously. But I guess the phase we're in now, it feels like normally. So 2 to 3 times. And to be honest, I really like going back to the office. I mean, people make fun of me that I spend more time in the live cafe, which is basically the cafe where you can drink coffee with colleagues. But to be honest, I'm in the office to meet people face to face, and not to have my door closed and sit in calls like we are now the entire day, right? Because I can do that in the comfort of my home. I mean, I can wear shorts like I am now. You can't see it. So I think that's way more convenient for everybody. And to be honest, I think it's a great thing that we're doing this. And I mean, to zoom in where I normally sit, I sit in a part of the Bayer campus. I mean, the Bayer campus is quite big, right? Over 5,000 people work here. But we actually sold off the building that I'm sitting in now. So the office, as I now know, with my own desk, will be gone by the end of this year. So that means that we'll move to an open office space. And I mean, like, I am from the Netherlands, as I told you, and there we are very much used to having open office spaces. So I'm not really, I don't know, I think it's fine, but I do see some resistance for some colleagues. And maybe this means that they'll have to give up their fancy office with the nice big plants and the view. But I guess now everybody will have a nice view.
Yeah, indeed. No, I share your view. It's important to me as well to catch up with people and have these in-person conversations that are not fully planned through. And this is one observation that I learned a lot in the past, where we reflected about how did we survive the pandemic, and what is it that drives us now into the office again, and how do we embrace the open concept, is that people felt they were basically reduced to working machines. No? So if you're not on an online meeting, if you're not spot on, people get already wary. Whereas if you're in an office environment, it was normal that people would pop in maybe 5-10 minutes later, because you knew they were approaching from a different height or from a different building. So, and we took the chance waiting for them to exchange either on personal matters or on side notes that had nothing to do with the meeting, or really prepare a little bit on how do we onboard a stakeholder. And all of that is only possible if you meet in person, really, right? So yeah, I'm also enjoying it. And at the moment we have a holiday season, so it's not very crowded there, but let's see. So once everybody's back, it should get more crowded and should be lots of fun.
Exactly. I mean, even though like sitting in big crowds, I mean, I would not consider the office a big crowd. It feels a bit funny. I mean, I was on vacation the last 2 weeks, and then going to the airport with hundreds of people, it still feels a bit awkward.
Yeah.
So I don't know when this will start feeling normal again, but I don't know. Let's see. But at least glad to hear that in other parts of the organization, we are going through the same things. We're all facing with, the same hurdles, right? Going back to the office, maybe reducing the amount of offices we have, open office spaces, and people with resistance to it. But like I think what we totally skipped over, because I now know that you are working in crop science, what is it you actually do?
My work is concerned with product safety. So in my role as the head of product safety commitments, I make sure that we apply a certain standard of safety scrutiny to all of our products independent of where we place them. So as a matter of fact, we have a huge operation, and I think we do business in more than 130 countries. And it's clear that not everywhere we have the same standards, but we want to make sure that compliance topics, we do a minimum everywhere, even though maybe the countries are not asking for it. So that's what I do. I take the safety teams towards committing certain principles that they apply, and then we see how we find processes and governance to implement it globally. So it's a super exciting position because I have the chance to work with the safety teams here global, but then it's also very important to reach out to all of our regions to make sure whatever we think is feasible and necessary is actually meeting reality and can be implemented. And thereby I meet a lot of people across cultures and continents. And as you know, then you can't be just one-dimensional. You have to adapt and find different ways to convince stakeholders on board them and generate buy-in. And so that's super exciting. And I've been doing this for quite some time in different prior roles. But how about you, Luke?
I will jump to it sounded interesting though, but like when you say product safety, is that like the product itself? Is that like the packaging, or is it like the labeling, or sort of the secondary packaging?
In crop science, one of our business models is to sell pesticides, right? And I mean, pesticides are compounds that we sell for a purpose. So the purpose is to mitigate a disease or to kill insects or to push back some weeds or so. So there's a biological activity that comes with it that's natural, like with chemical, with medicine and pharmaceuticals. But of course, we have to make sure that any unwanted effects are not exceeding certain limits. So first and foremost, we make sure that our customers, the operators, are not adversely affected. And then it also concerns the environment. And as a third pillar, it's about if you apply it to food crops, are there any residues left so that it's unproblematic to be eaten later on? And so these three elements, operator, dietary, and environment, that's what we mean when we speak about product safety. So when it's used in the field, shouldn't have any negative impacts.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I think that has a lot of comparison to our pharmaceutical products, right? I mean, I work in radiology. Well, I work in the pharma division, and then in radiology as a subset of the pharma division. And like within radiology, we have a bit of a strange function because like we are not treating any patients. Basically, we are diagnosing patients. So basically, every patient with severe diseases will go through a radiology department at some point. And there we sell products in the field of contrast media, devices, and software. And this combination of these three product groups makes it very unique. I think it's actually quite comparable to the work we do or where we are experimenting in within crop science, where we try to move from a more product-focused approach to an outcome-focused approach. And within radiology, we're actually trying to do the same, where we try to move away from selling products and try to move into selling solutions. And as my role, I work in the transformation office, which sounds super cool, but which basically means that I'm working in the global strategy team as a strategist, and we try to create concepts, catalysts, support initiatives, possibilities, projects, ideas that actually make us reach that dream or reach that vision to become a solution provider, to sit next to the customer and jointly look at problems instead of sitting across them and jointly looking at a product that there's to sell, which is very challenging because like high level, the fancy PowerPoints, everybody's always buying into things. But then when it sort of drills down to doing things, I mean, that's where it gets tough. But to be honest, that's also where it gets exciting. Yeah, I've been doing that for almost 2 years now. But I mean, it's fun and challenging at the same time. But I guess that's part of the job.
Cool. So what's your background educational-wise?
Well, I have a commercial background, but I have been in sales for over 10 years.
Okay.
And at some point, I joined Bayer because I joined several companies. Well, actually, I was in pharmaceutical sales in several companies. And at one point, I was like, well, I was at a small company and I sort of met my ceiling, my glass ceiling, you could call it, quite rapidly. And then I asked my boss, like, hey, can I do more things? And they basically said, yeah, sure, you can. But in the end, nothing happened. So then this made me realize, like, how long am I going to wait for some manager to promote me somewhere? And I decided, well, not any longer. So I started looking for other jobs. And what I did was basically look at all the big pharma companies because I figured a company like Bayer could offer me a lot of different things, right? Right now, I was working in pharmaceuticals, but obviously we have crop science, we have consumer health, we have a lot of things going on in the enabling functions. So I was like, well, I mean, if I will meet my ceiling in my current job, then there will be fields where I can spread my wings in. So that's why I actually joined Bayer, selling our full radiology portfolio, training our customers, onboarding them, doing negotiations, basically a super broad function. But I mean, when I was in that function for like 2.5 years, I told my boss, who was then the country head of the Benelux, I told him, hey, Rudy, I want to have your job. And then he started laughing. And then I said, well, I don't want to push you out. Just when you are ready for a promotion or for something new or whatever, that I would be a suitable candidate. He said, okay, well, I mean, thank you for telling me, right, to my face and not sort of behind my back. So let's jointly look at a development plan for you. That actually got me enrolled into sort of a traineeship within radiology. And that actually caused that I did like several rotations throughout the organization. I saw a lot of like the regional teams, the global teams, did marketing, project management, service and business development management. And in the end, that landed me my current job. So it's actually quite like when I look back on like where was I like 3 or 4 years ago, I was just in sales telling somebody I wanted to do more. And now I'm here at the global strategy team.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it actually is pretty cool.
So in hindsight, all your expectations so far were met. I could resume then from what you tell me.
I mean, yes and no, right? I mean, I think expectations on outcome, yes, definitely. Expectations on process, well, it's been quite a ride. I mean, to be honest, let's say the program I was signing up to basically means within 2 years, you'll do 3 or 4 rotations, which could be anywhere over the world.
Mm-hmm.
For like personally, that meant for the first rotation, I moved to Berlin with my girlfriend. She quit her job in the Netherlands. She found a job here in Berlin. But then after half a year, I was actually supposed to move to Sweden. Because of COVID, this didn't happen. So I prolonged my stay in Berlin. And then I was supposed to move to the US, which I think was great from a career perspective. But you could probably imagine from a personal perspective, managing a relationship with somebody that's, 10, 11 hours flying away and a 6-hour time difference. This would have been quite challenging. But again, COVID. So I actually moved back to the Netherlands. Okay. So only a few hours away from Berlin, while my girlfriend actually maintained her job in Berlin. But then again, COVID. So I moved back to Berlin physically, but then started working remotely in the Netherlands. So it was a bit of a strange situation for me. But I think going through all of this ambiguity was not easy, to be honest. But I have to say, and I have to be fair, that there was great support from Bayer in regards to relocation, in regards to cultural training, to finding a house, so I basically just had to worry about my ease of mind and didn't have to worry about finding a house or those kind of things.
Super excellent. Yeah. Yeah, but I can tell you if you're really investing even distant relationships to work. So before I joined Bayer, I did a PhD and I did that on the other side of the world. So I was studying in New Zealand. And when I took the decision to go down there, my girlfriend was enrolled in courses over here, and it was clear that there would be some sort of distant relationship. And lucky for us that she found in New Zealand some of the studies that she always wanted to do. And at the end of the day, she was able to join me there for 2 of the 3 years. But we still had to cope for the first and the last 6 months to have a distant relationship. And while it's not perfect and a lot of time difference makes it difficult, it's also manageable. But of course, on the 6-month rotation, going from here to there, that's really a stretch. And then for a relationship, 2 years is really a long time too. But I had then to also stay with her because later on when we also returned and she enrolled in a PhD course, she went to India for several months. So
wow.
And while New Zealand and Germany, let's say, are technology-wise highly developed, the rural India isn't. So there was always every day a battle if you could get hold of your partner or not. And oftentimes it wasn't possible to get connected because the mobile connection was flat or the internet was flat or it was raining too much or something like that. And I actually joined Bayer because you were talking about shorts. I actually got the job at Bayer also in shorts because the first interview was video in 2009 and I was still in New Zealand. So they were interviewing me via video and I think it was in late December. So in the middle of the summer down there. I was wearing a shirt and a tie, and so, but the party couldn't see I was wearing shorts, and I was just really happy when it was over because it was so hot that day. But I learned later on that I got invited for the follow-up interviews because of my formal appearance. So back in the days in 2009, that was an important part. How you show up on screen. And my strongest competitor wasn't dressed formally. So basically, he didn't make it to the final round. And I was then the perfect match.
But a difference a tie can make sometimes.
I tell you, I'm glad that this changed now, that we are really investing in diversity and it's more about the people and not what they wear.
I mean, I agree with you, right? Even though I do feel that let's say, business attire and casual attire, like it's okay, right? To dress up for work. I mean, I feel like this is a shirt. I think this is okay, right? I have been commented on by, let's say, an old school colleague who said, look, you are very happy, like very lucky that the boss is not in because this is very casual. And I mean, I was wearing like this with chinos and just regular shoes, I think. I mean, no sneakers or whatsoever. And I thought, well, this should be okay, right? I mean, I do draw the line at shorts in the office because I think that's not okay. But I mean, I agree with you. I think things should ease in a little bit, but I don't think we should go south that way. I mean, to me, diversity is more than just like wearing a suit. I mean, maybe it's easier for us, like being men, like a suit. I mean, you can never go wrong with a suit, right? You can just decide, well, should I wear a tie or not? I think a suit is a suit. It's always fine. But I think for women, they have a much harder job.
That's true. No, I agree. I'm more casual when I'm in the home office than when I go to the office, to be frank. So I usually wear shirts and bottom-up shirts and dress suit trousers when I'm in the office. But I tell you, our leadership is pretty casual. So we had an R&D town hall the other week, and while the head of R&D, he was wearing a normal shirt, but one of his team members, he came in with an Oxford shirt that wasn't even ironed. So you could clearly tell, I don't know where he pulled that shirt out, but it was not ironed and his sunglasses were there. And he was like just for the first 2 minutes making fun of his boss. And I was like, okay, wow, that was quite casual now. But they were all like that. They had a good time and a good meeting before they spoke to us. But again, that would have been quite different about 10 years ago or 13 years ago when I joined the company. And it speaks to me that it's about the content, and not so much about the appearance and the people. So you said you're doing this transformational, you're in the transformational office?
The transformation office, yeah, definitely. Which, I mean, I think all of us are going through different kinds of transformation. Like within pharma, it's called True North now. I think, Enabling Functions has Bayer 2022 or 2022 plus. And I think Consumer Health and Crop Science also has something like that. So basically, my team is newly founded. It's a small team and which mainly focuses on transformation, as the name would suggest. And I think this sort of frees our hands because typically, if you're working for a specific product group, like you will always be incentivized to focus on that specific product group. Whereas my team is sort of free from any specific product or product group. So we can basically do whatever we want to reach our goal. And the goal is for Bayer Radiology as a whole, not just for specific products or for specific things. And I think this also makes a lot of sense because if you want to sell solutions, if you want to go more into a service-like business, then you should not be worried about, am I selling too much? Like, am I selling enough of product A, B, or C? I think the goal should be, how can I uncover my customers' problems so I can actually solve them?
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like there's a lot of innovation topics covered.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this is sort of the I mean, if I say sort of the shower drain of everything, I mean, that sounds a bit negative, right? But I think it's maybe a place where ideas can be consolidated. So things in regards to sustainability, things in regards to culture and transformation, things in regards to new business models, things around IT strategy and what is needed in the long term. I think all of these things, because like if you say new business models, then everybody always starts smiling because it's great, it's exciting. But people typically forget that in order to do new business models, you have to have a very solid back end process. You need to have legal, compliance, commercial. You need to have different conversations with your customers, right? So we have great people in the field, but if you've just been selling one single product or one single product group for 10 or 20 years, like how easy will it be for you to change the conversation?
Sure. Yeah, I know a little bit about it because in crop science we have a program which is called Catalyst Fund, and with the Catalyst Fund, so you know about it. Okay. So we always support some fancy ideas where we feel okay, it has the potential to really land somewhere. And I had the choice and the pleasure to lead one of these teams through 2 immersions. So we were at the end delivering a full developed product that was customer facing. But going there was really a stretch, and the pleasure about it was I learned a lot about value proposition design and business model de-risking and so on and so forth. And I think the biggest learning I took away was, always have the readiness to pivot. If you start with certain assumptions, so say you have a list of 4 assumptions, what could be the perfect need for your customer, and 3 months later you find out you were completely wrong. Don't be disappointed, be cheerful for it and say, yes, okay, now I've got it. So let's turn around. And I think that's also something that has changed compared to the earlier days, that today we are really ready to say, okay, we are very adaptive to what we hear from the field, and we are really inclusive about customer needs, and we appreciate the collaboration that we have with our customer base in order to deliver the products that really make sense and not just something that they will use because there is no alternative. And it's basically, the how do you call it, the better of 2 worse things, right? And so that was an amazing experience, and I really enjoyed it a lot.
I can imagine that is a good learning, right? I think one of those, let's say, sayings in strategy is always love the problem more than you love the idea. Because like what you said, right? If you go down the line, you start with an hypothesis, and this hypothesis is an idea, like I've got this great idea, it will solve A, B, C, D. But along the line, you realize it either doesn't work, the business model doesn't make sense, it doesn't solve any customer problems, or it just creates new problems on the other hand. And I think this was actually great. I mean, I do remember when I just joined Bayer, they described the organization as this freight ship, this freight tanker. They said Bayer is like this huge ship. I mean, as long as you like stay within the designated spots, you can load up really high, we can transport like any storm, we will face it and we will continue. But as long as you try to maneuver from left to right, or if you want to move freight crates outside of designated spots, you'll get into trouble. And I think this was very true. I think this was a good comparison. And also to manage my expectations, to be honest. I mean, I always try to search for the gray zones, right? Being from sales, you try to stay within the lines, but just approach the line a little bit more than people, let's say, in legal or compliance would like to. So I think that's always nice, finding this sort of friction field in creativity, in what is possible. But to be honest, there is a lot possible within Bayer, because like we have things like the Catalyst Fund, which actually enables ideas to gain support, gain external support, or even internal support, because we have a lot of great knowledge and expertise, but we typically sit in our own little office with the door closed, thinking about our own ideas and not really talking to anybody else. I think one of the great examples that I could share was when I was in the European team as a project manager, or actually when I was still in sales, I had the idea to do something with recycling. I mean, sustainability is an important topic, not only for us, but for basically everybody. And I saw that our customers, so the users of our products, had a lot of waste that they really didn't know what to do with. So I started with this idea, like, what if we just collect this waste and we, I don't know, either get rid of it or reuse it? And coming to Berlin, coming in contact with a lot of these different colleagues, I realized that Bayer was already doing this. We're already like recycling waste materials or excess production parts. And this is actually already a big business model where we recycle contrast media usage. So I figured, well, why can't we do this for our customers?
Yeah.
So I sort of try to find, let's say, the loopholes to move outside of the designated spots. And after a lot of lobbying, getting people excited, we actually now have this project. and we are selling it and we are using it and we're providing it to our customers within Europe. So to me, this really shows that at Bayer, like if you're a little stubborn and if you are willing to invest time and effort, you can actually make things happen. And this is something I did not expect when I was just joining, that if you just are persistent enough and rattle, let's say, the right trees, that in the end something will fall out.
Yeah, indeed. I agree. I have similar experiences. So the situation that got me into my current job was similar in that sense that when I started, we had different standards across the world, and we were constantly challenged for double standards and yada yada. So fairly early on, I made the suggestion, well, we could automate some of what we do here by hand. And first reactions were no, and doesn't work, and how could you, and yada yada. But I basically insisted with this idea and spread the news over a couple of years. It was a longer term effort, and with the changing environment and also the changing capabilities of our computers and networks and cloud storages, more people started to talk about it. And then several years later, I think it may have been 6 to 7 years later, it came back from one of my line managers who said, okay, now we are ready. I set you up on this idea. I give you a different job and you implement it. And he didn't even know that I was several years earlier the originator of this idea. And I wasn't grabbing it. I was just cheerful that it came back to me and I had the chance to implement it. And so I think next to the ability, it's also about, as you said, the stubbornness, the resistance, and that you just use your network to spread great ideas, and that this multiplication then happens. And through that, I felt a lot is possible. It's just, I think I was a bit more impatient when I first had this idea and said, why are people not listening? They don't see it. Why, And I think that's important also you said that earlier, in a big tanker environment, that a lot is possible, but maybe it takes a little longer than you would expect naturally.
It always takes longer than you expect at Bayer. Even though I always say it will take a long time, it still takes longer than I expect. Yeah. I mean, this does always sort of remind me of this change management training I did once, where like it all in the end trickles down to, let's say, the carrot or the stick, right? So why do people want to change, like to move away from pain or to run towards something that brings them joy? I think if people don't see it, then like why would they do anything with it? I mean, maybe for some reasons, but so like whenever I run into these walls that you described, right? So why are people not listening? Why are they not doing anything with it? I sort of think, okay, like am I using the carrot or the stick or both at the same time or none at all? And this often helps.
Yeah.
In theory, but I had to learn that as well. I mean, like from a cultural perspective, I had to learn, like coming to Germany from the Netherlands, like the Netherlands is very direct, like independent of your rank or level in the organization, people will give them your opinion. Basically from the CEO to the janitor, everybody will give their opinion at any given time. But then in Germany, like coming to Germany, working with, let's say, more classical German leaders, I had to learn that it's not okay if I go to my boss's boss and tell him what I feel or how I think about things.
Okay.
Or that I get, like that I skip the line, that I get endorsement for somebody that I need. So I really spent time waiting for my manager to speak about things with his manager.
Okay.
And this really frustrated me.
Yeah, I can understand. No, that's different in our place. So at Crop Science, I've always felt a very transparent flow of communication. And I started this also fairly early, where I was in a situation, you talked about career development, and I had one of the first career talks with my former boss, and he was more old school, so he had a couple of fixedness in his brain, and so I realized that quite quickly, and I said, okay, well, he's not going to support me on that path, so maybe give him another chance in the next development dialogue, and I choose a different path, and I realized, well, he's not going to support me on that path either. So I said, well, okay, I'm going to have my development dialogue now with your boss. And he said, yeah, I think that's a good idea. So he was absolutely okay. Maybe he had also the feeling that he wasn't able to support me. And from there, it was then a different story, right? But I also had to learn that. And I think then it's important that you as an employee just take the trust that the organization will support you. And nowadays that I'm responsible for people, I always try to meet them where they are, right? To say, okay, I comprehend you as a holistic person. And if there are some aspects that you don't feel comfortable talking to me, there's always peers or my line manager where you could reach out to. And if it's something about personal, we have a lot of capabilities in Bayer where we have also support from experts. And this is really good to know that we have that transparency, and I try to live it that way, and I think I'm quite successful with it.
Yeah, I think that's actually great practice. I mean, obviously coming from your own experience, right? I mean, I think it's actually quite a pretty bold move, right? Telling your manager, I'm gonna do the next development dialogue with your boss, basically. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I always consider myself pretty bold, but this is something I have never done yet, even though I have come across managers who were not really eager to either let go of me or to do something with me. Because, I mean, to be honest, that is very important, right? When we speak about like talent development or just development in general at Bayer, I think we have a lot of good people leaders, as we call them now, but we also have a lot of leaders who really focus on their own teams. So they preferably do not let go of talents or do not develop their talents with the risk of losing them.
Yeah.
How do you see this being a manager?
Well, how do I see this? I think any potential that we don't leverage is a failure for the whole organization. And I do strategy work as well, right? So we don't deliver product dossiers, or we don't support product launches. So that's strategic work. And so I'm kind of biased by that environment, right? But for me, it's more important that the organization gets a talent developed than that some of our procedures are implemented 3 months earlier or so. But I don't have external deadlines. Right? If I was in a more operational situation where I have to deliver against external deadlines, and I know maybe there is a shortage of certain expertise on the market, and 2 of my 5 super experts are willing to leave tomorrow, then I guess it would be a different situation. But then again, I probably would manage it also from the start differently, to say, okay, we have clear expectations towards career progressions within this team. And then you can build from that and say, okay, if I know maybe the turnover rate is something like 4 to 6 years, you can then bring in talent and say, okay, I need to prepare for expert move in 2 years. So I start recruiting within the next year a new person. And I think it's that kind of attitude to see, okay, what's really the operational need of my team and how immersed are we in these external deadlines, and then planning for it, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, and I mean, in the end, we all have deadlines, right? I mean, it doesn't really matter who's knocking on your door. It could be a customer, it could be one of the internal colleagues. What I realized is that, like, before I was in sales, right, I used to manage 30, 40 hospitals. But now, like, moving to Berlin, I basically manage one hospital, right? Because it's like one set of stakeholders, one decision-making unit per product group or per project or whatever. I have to influence people. I have to make sure that they like my project, that they buy into these things. I have to do alignment meetings up front. I need to. So in the end, it sort of all comes down to sales. And if I'm not meeting deadlines, like, I will definitely not get a promotion at some point. So I understand what you're saying. I think it's an interesting approach.
So, Luke, you said earlier that one reason for you to join Bayer was the better perspectives on your career. And by the way, that you talk about your current role, I can imagine it's heaps of fun, and that you're filling up that role. There's super exciting challenges, and you get to meet different people across the organization. But when you look ahead, so what would you be doing in 5 years from now if it was your choice?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I'm always struggling with that question. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Maybe I will never know. Like, what I learned when I was in the Netherlands, I founded a community called Young Bayer, which was specifically focused on the need of the young people in the organization. And then when I came to Berlin, I asked around, like, do we have something like that? Well, the answer was no. So we found a small group of people. We started this. We got endorsement from senior managers, and now we're roughly 1,200 members on a global level, and we're even expanding to be really a global player that focuses on generational diversity. And in this whole process of growing the community, I've really experienced that it's really amazing if you can enable people to grow. I mean, there were a lot of colleagues who either got new jobs because they were involved with the Young Bayer activities, that they developed, that they were able to do things that they would never be able to do because, I don't know, they're just early 20s, for example. So why would you present to a leadership team somewhere? I mean, you're very operational, so why would you do strategic things? So creating this community really opened my eyes that I love to develop people, to focus on people development. And I mean, this component of people, basically, I think this is also where my strength lies. So like in 5 years, I hope to be able to lead a team. I hope to be able to inspire people. I love to do the mentoring thing that we do at Bayer, because then really on a small scale, via regular mentoring or reverse mentoring, you can inspire people on a really small scale. And I think this is amazing.
Yeah.
But what role actually fits with that? Like, how do I fit within the Bayer structure? Because we love a good structure. I have no clue.
That's all good. I think your response is perfect. And if I ask for a specific role, I can't even recall. Then I beg your pardon, because that was
No. I mean, I think like when I just joined the Berlin office, I had a manager and he asked me basically the same question. So what do you want to be when you grow up? And I think he was a little bit disappointed that I didn't say I want to have your job in this amount of years, because he was basically expecting me to have this sort of vertical path up.
Yeah.
But like the reason why I joined Bayer was because I think crop science is super cool. I think consumer health offers a lot of super nice, let's say, fast moving parts. And I think the enabling functions, like with HR, I think this is a super interesting field. So I don't think I will stay in radiology for the rest of my life, but maybe I will.
Fair enough. No, super.
Yeah.
I also didn't like that focus on roles. And when I joined Bayer in 2009 and the following years, it was very much a fixedness on, you have to say you want to become this or that leader, because people had certain ideas of how these people are in these roles. And I'm glad that that changed now, right? And it's more about, okay, what's your drive and where are your aspirations and where do you see your strengths and how could you imagine these strengths helping the organization? I mean, the changes that we see, it would be insane to say, I don't know, in 10 years from now, I want to be heading 3 or 4 contract levels above my current grade, because it's very possible that this position isn't going to be there any longer in 10 years from now, right? So I'm with you. It's more about your intrinsic motivations and how they translate into what the organization needs. And I do see more of the leaders, the people leaders really also appreciating that, as opposed to 10 years from today. It's really different. And this is what I was hoping actually to experience when I joined Bayer, because back in the days, they had a strong focus on values. They weren't as clear as they are today. They were a bit cumbersome and somehow difficult to understand. But at least for me, coming from external, there was something that I noted, that they had a focus on people and how they want to interact with each other, but also how they want to interact with their customers and their suppliers, and what they want to do for the environment. And that's been always there. And I'm super glad that we didn't stick with that old frame, but really developed it further, and we continue to do so. And I feel that we are really at the forefront here now, really embracing this change and the focus towards an important player across the markets where we act. And you feel it everywhere. It's not just saying, it's really our DNA. And that's also why I'm super glad to have the position that I have, because I can contribute towards it. And then interacting on these specific examples with different cultures across the globe really makes it tangible, right? So if we say we want to be a sustainability leader, what does it mean? If we place products and want to generate money at the same time, it's a little bit of the stretch that you mentioned earlier. And then it's really up to us employees to shape that. And it's super to see that many of our leaders then are supportive if we come back with solutions that maybe not the next best thing at the first glance, but really offer some good perspective business-wise, but also from a sustainability point of view.
I agree. And I mean, I can only echo that I can really feel that we are trying to live our standards, right? That it's not just fancy PowerPoints or fancy statements, but that we're actually trying to do things, right? I think in the field of diversity, for example, there's an openness now to more virtual STAs. So that means that if you want to get the experience, but you're stuck in your home country for whatever reason, it's suddenly possible to work abroad. And I actually think that this is a great opportunity. I mean, I became a father end of last year. So for me, I suddenly feel like way more, let's say, grounded or sort of stuck to my son. Like it's me and my girlfriend taking care of him. So, I mean, we are together and we are like one happy family, but obviously it's not just me or just the two of us anymore. Like we have to think of so many different things. And then if I think of all the colleagues who are like raising families, like with a partner or on their own, who now will get these opportunities to develop, I actually think that this is something that's great for the organization in the long run.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I agree. And see, so I have the pleasure to be a parent of 4 girls. And so I can truly imagine what you just described. And I agree with you. So there was never a hurdle for me to develop. So I think I got the last promotion just after our twins got born. And I mean, all my leadership environment knew that it was going to be a stretch. And I said, well, it's going to be a new role. And I don't know. And I said, okay, don't worry. We are there to support you. And you don't have to work like 70 hours each week. We know that you are capable. So we trust that you can balance work life. And I even then did some paternity leave for a couple of weeks in order to be supportive at home. And it was all fine. And this is what you just said, that there are a lot of possibilities to balance, the lives between different perspectives in the private and the working life. And so I am super supportive. I just had a call with a colleague from the US earlier, and he was asking me if we do summer hours. And I was like, what are summer hours? So seemingly in the US, they have contracts on an hourly basis. So what they do is they save 1 hour every day from Monday to Thursday so that they can knock off at lunchtime on Friday.
Wow.
So you were in the US, maybe you know about it. And I said, well, that sounds awesome, but I don't have an hour-based contract at all. I have a content-based contract. So I have this freedom every day. And as long as I get my stuff, then my line manager is not concerned if I work from 4 to 6 or from 10 to 11 at night. The important thing is that I'm there and the deadlines are there and that I take care of my people, and how I do that at which time, it's basically not that important. And that reminded me of this privilege also that we have with a very trustful employer.
Definitely. And I think this is the interesting thing of having a global role. I mean, you already mentioned this, right? Speaking to people from different cultures, different countries. Like, I think that within Germany, we are very safe when it comes to job security. I mean, we have to really mess up for them to fire us sort of on the spot. And obviously, like, we have lost a lot of colleagues during the reorganization, but I think in general, we are very safe, especially if you compare that to a country like to our colleagues in the US, for example. They can basically be fired and then they have to search for a new job at the end of the week or at the end of the month. I think this is something you see in how people work, basically.
Yeah, could well be.
But interesting that they save up hours to take the Friday afternoon off.
Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to share with you, because I'm from a background, I'm a natural scientist. So I studied environmental chemistry and soil science and also technology management. And I often got the question, so why did you go into industry? Because most of my study peers are academics or they work in some governmental bureaus or so. And I had a very decisive event that was one of the first lessons in soil science at the university, where the professor said, you have to scare off people in order to get money for environmental research. And it's unfortunately true. So unlike, let's say, physics or computer science, if you need money for environmental research, you have to say there's a problem, there's an issue. And right from that moment on, I thought, okay, I'm not going to scare off people in order to generate money. I want to be part of an organization or a group that develops solutions that has the capability of doing some good for people and not, scaring them off with harmful messages. And unfortunately, that we have to scare people is some of our reality today in crop science, where we see a lot of opposition from NGOs. And so if I was good learning for me back in the days. And with that knowledge, I later on studied some of the big players in our field. And I realized that they not only are academics who publish papers and write up new evidence for the scientific fields, but they also sell testing strategies. They had companies through which they sold testing strategies for these new findings that they wrote out. So it's really interesting. So also, I would say, at least in the environmental science area, the academic world is sort of a business model. It's not just educational. And that's how I took my choice to join Bayer.
It's an interesting one, right? I mentioned, right, that I've joined several other pharma companies before, and like whenever I go to trade fairs for specific indications or for specific doctors, I'm always surprised by the business that there is in things. And like from, I don't know, disposable OR material, never thought of it, of sort of laying plates to absorb fluids for an OR table, or specific tools that you need for orthopedic surgery. And I mean, now you're telling me this. I mean, it's always surprising how, say, creative people find ways to make money.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's funny though. But I mean, maybe sort of going back to your job and leading people, like what motivates you, or like what really brings you joy, or like what is the thing that at the end of the day you will go to your partner and say, honey, this is what happened today?
Yeah. So the aspects about leading people that motivate me are that in my role, I have the possibility to find ways to leverage their potential. You said earlier you like to support or have people growing. And if you provide framework or programs that help them, that's an amazing experience. And basically it's the same. So my leadership pitch is that I have a good sense of listening to people, and I have a talent of identifying their special talent. And being a people leader, I have also the possibilities of bringing them then in positions or roles or stretch assignments, project assignments where they can excel and really on their potential. And that's a real joy if you then realize, wow, there was even more than I, thought of, and people excel and go beyond these borders and take their career path somewhere else. So this is really what motivates me. And to work with them to say, okay, what's your aspiration? And sometimes you also have situations where maybe you don't quite agree. And then what do? You reflect with other leaders. Am I off track? Am I seeing this person in a different way? Or if not, then to find maybe this different perspective for these people to say, okay, maybe now I realize that I was off track and I'm more of a strategic thinker than the operational monster that I always thought of. And that's also very rewarding. And it's little bits and pieces. Or if you introduce new methods of meeting, organization, working together, and you see them grow, and it's just much more possible to do that and multiply it in a leadership role than in a contributor role.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And like, is this the same for you with your daughters?
In terms of talent, yes. So the let's say the fundamental belief that everyone has a unique talent and it's my job to find that and to leverage that. Yes. The way that we arrive, which is the best talent, is of course quite different because we are closer and these are childs, and sometimes I have to tell them eating sweets all day is not the best thing that you should be doing.
No.
But in essence, staying open. So my dad challenged me when I told him, look, I'm going to do a PhD in New Zealand. He was like, well, shouldn't you be earning proper money by now? I was like, yeah, and I'm earning money with that. It's just not the amount that maybe would seem okay for you. And that was also a good lesson for me because I said, whatever, people are up for at first, take a chance and say, this is realistic to reach and find out how. And so I try to keep that attitude also for the kids. So one of them is a super great artist, and it's difficult to earn money with being an artist. But if you don't, let's say, dwell on this on this talent, it would be a shame. So I try to support her in that.
Funny. Thanks for sharing. But it is interesting though, right? Because your father probably thought, well, shouldn't you get like a job with a permanent contract? Go for the safety and for the security. But I think these days people are looking for more than a permanent contract or a really high VS grade. They look to develop, look to grow, and look to work in a company that sort of fulfills them and gives them purpose and a sense of impact and accomplishment.
Exactly. And there are even, let's say, ideas or perspectives where you say the buyer job is not the only one that I'm having. I love to work for Bayer, but I'm also doing other stuff. So for me in my part-time, I'm acting as mentor for startups. So this whole Catalyst experience got me into a network of incubators, and they're always young startups are looking for people who reflect ideas with them and bring up different expertise or connect to different experts who can help them. And so I enjoy that a lot. I don't get anything out of it apart from the experience. So I'm not generating immediate money from that, but I have a lot of joy and I get to learn a lot of different concepts and ways to approach things. And they're always very happy from my perspective. So I continue to do that, and it's heaps of fun.
That's super interesting. So, and then do you know, like, what will your next role be, or like the one after that? Like, where can we find you in 10 years?
Yeah, so I'm maintaining a personal development diary, and I always go back to that. And at one part, I wrote down that I'm going to be the most impactful innovation manager in the life science, which is, of course, quite ambitious, Luke, to be honest. But in essence, it describes my aspirations. So I want to contribute to the company's success by driving our innovation forward. And that's not only product innovation, it's also the way that we work. So currently, I'm focusing a lot to help the cultural transition again. So innovation in that sense, how do we approach work? How does work look like in modern times? It's not just about delivering task X, Y, Z. It's also about how you share, how you interact, how you work asynchronically. And so, there's a lot that I'm focusing right now. And if I find roles that combine my thrive for talent development and innovation, then I'm always happy, I would say. What kind of jobs there are, I don't know. And to be frank, having the responsibility at home also for 4 kids, I'm not sure if I would, really exceed to the highest level where you have to travel a lot and be there for investors at insane times of the day. I think there's a certain limit to how much I balance between work and life. And I haven't reached it yet, but I know it's somewhere below the C-suite, I would say.
Yeah, I think everybody always looks at the C-suite, but then forgets what it either takes to get there or what you have to do when you're actually there.
Indeed.
But no, I can totally echo that. Yeah, I mean, I love the ambition, though. Maybe like if you can trim it down a bit, it's actually achievable, right? I mean, the best, I mean, that's only one. But I mean, probably one of the best. I think that's achievable.
Yeah, exactly. So we used to have that GLC circle. I think it's called different these days. And it would be a couple of steps for me, but I'm still in my early 40s, so still achievable.
Still young enough, right? Definitely. So I'm very curious to see where you're going to end up.
Yeah. Maybe our paths cross and we can pull some exciting stuff together.
Definitely. Sounds like a great plan. Yeah. I mean, it was like truly inspiring to speak to you. I think it's great to meet colleagues who they're sort of like-minded, right, in different fields of the organization. Sometimes it feels a bit that you're alone in this big party looking around in all these other people. But then during occasions like this, you meet people who are actually fairly like-minded. So I'm pretty sure that we will cross paths somewhere along the line.
Definitely. And if it was for a nice beer on, in the cafes at Berlin, because I do love Berlin a lot. And now I know one more person to catch up with there.
Definitely. Yeah. And I'm a big foodie, right? So if you are ever in Berlin, just hook me up, send me a message, and I will either be able to escort you to a nice restaurant or recommend you one. And that's also fine.
I will come back to you on that.
Very good.
I enjoyed it a lot too, Luke. Nice to meeting you. And now I'm also looking forward to spend some spare time with my kids on the weekend and enjoy the nice weather.
Definitely. Then happy Friday and really nice meeting you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.